Namaste, everyone. Good evening. Warm greetings to everyone and welcome to the 9th day of this 2-week online certificate course on Indian knowledge systems, navigating the extent and scope. And I think most of us who have seen each other for these past 8 days would know that we've become quite used to being together during this time frame of 6:30 to 8. And I'm sure as the course ends tomorrow, you are going to miss being on this platform uh, uh, because tomorrow will be the closing lecture. So last 2 lectures of the course, and we are really hoping that more and more registered participants can join. And of course, I don't need to, at this point of time, do a recap of what all we have covered, but just to bring to all of yours attention that we have been able to cover a wide range of topics, wide range of themes pertaining to Bharatiya Gyan Parampara over the course of this 2 weeks. And I can already see some participants saying that they've gotten used to these 90 minutes and wish we had more such sessions. So definitely we are already preparing and planning for the second round of this certificate course with 10 different another experts. So we'll definitely keep you updated on that count. Meanwhile, it is my privilege and my pleasure to welcome our speaker for today, Miss Manasa Shastri ji. Manasa, are you there, or is there some network issue from your end? Just a moment. Is Manasa there in the meeting? Yeah, I think she exited the meeting. I think there is some network issue. So let's wait for her to rejoin so that I can introduce her. I think she was facing some network issues.
Yes, Nidhi, sorry, I'm here.
No problem. I think there must have been some network issue.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, just a minute. So I just need to first not forget to make you the co-host. Yeah, you are already the host. So let me pin you to the screen. So namaste, everyone. Today we have Manasa Shastri ji as our guest speaker for the day. And the topic that she is going to speak on, I'm sure all of us are looking forward to it. She's going to speak on yoga through the ages, tracing its journey from ancient to modern times. It is my privilege to introduce Manasaji to this August gathering because she's not just an accomplished professional, but she is also a dear friend. Manasa Shastri is a dynamic individual who embodies a deep passion for health, fitness, and personal growth. She is a level 3 Ayush Ministry certified yoga teacher and an alumnus of the renowned Akshar Yoga. She has dedicated her life to helping others achieve holistic well-being. Quite a noble goal in this day and age, Manasa. Manasaji has over 15 years of professional experience working with prestigious organizations like the Leela Hotels, the Times of India, Star TV, and Daily Hunt. She has made a bold decision to transition from a corporate career to pursue her calling in yoga and fitness. This is something that I would request Manasaji to speak on once she is done with her lecture. How did this transition from corporate life to yoga happen for her, and how did she navigate this challenge? Because I believe that some of us, including me, are trying to make this transition, though we may not have been that successful. In addition to being an NSCA, India Certified Strength and Conditioning Coach, Manasa Shastri is an accomplished endurance athlete. She has successfully completed 4 full marathons and multiple half marathons. I think the most recent was the Bombay Marathon, the marathon in Mumbai. And through these through her active participations in these marathons, she showcases her dedication to physical and mental resilience, of course, coming deeply from a Bharatiya perspective. If you follow her on social media, you will see that she's on the run always. Her mission is to inspire countless individuals to embrace our Bharatiya roots for an active and fulfilled life. So, quite an accomplished personality with us today on the NLD platform. Manasaji, I am delighted, pleased, and honored to welcome you to deliver this lecture on yoga through the ages. And it is quite interesting and fascinating that so many of us who have these Bharatiya roots embedded inside of us are now thinking of making this transition from a Western, modern, corporate lifestyle to a lifestyle and to to a value system that is rooted in our thoughts, our Indic Bharatiya thoughts. So you exemplify and you embody, you are a living example of how that transition can be made successfully. So in the later part of the session, once we are doing question and answer, I would request you to reflect on 2 things. This transition that you underwent, and number 2, since you are in the heart of Kumbh, or you were in the heart of Kumbh till yesterday, to reflect on your experience at the Kumbh Mela. So with this, I invite you to deliver your lecture. I'll just give you a humble time check at 7:30 because we would also like to spend some time in discussion and interaction.
Thank you, Nidhi. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here. And let me first just share my screen with you all, and then we shall start. Just give me 2 minutes for my prayer. Yogena chittasya padena vacha malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarottam pravaram munina Patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi Abahu Purushakaram Shankrachakrathidaranam Sahasrashirasam Shvetam Patanjalim Pranamam Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunatu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vitvi shavahai. Oh, Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. All right. Okay, so what do we talk about yoga, right?
Nansa,
not
just a request. Can you just
Yes.
click on the hide thing that is popping
Yes.
up on the screen? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. We all know about yoga. It's not an alien concept anymore, right? I mean, and also it's quite difficult to talk about a subject like yoga and condense everything that you know about it in about 40-45 minutes or an hour for that matter. That too, when the subject is so vast and so gigantic, right? And for us, a lot of us for that matter, yoga is just about asanas, just about postures, and maybe a little bit about meditation and a little bit about chanting, right? So I might just take you to a journey which is slightly beyond that. However, let me give you a warning. We're just gonna dive into this ocean called yoga, just going to maybe taste the waters, touch the tip of the iceberg, and come back, right? It's impossible to condense everything into a small session like this. And even if I do maybe years of workshops, it would be very, very difficult to even explain and find the roots of yoga. Such is the vastness of this particular concept or topic for that matter. Right. So we are just, like I said, we'll just touch the base and come out of it. To begin with, Atha Yoga Anushasana. Let's just start, or let's study this concept called yoga. I shall come back to this sutra very soon in about another few slides. Right? All right. Now, before we even understand the origin and we start tracing the history of yoga, we need to understand what is this yoga all about, right? Or where did this yoga come from, and how have people defined it, and in what terms and means has this word been used in various contexts, right? So yoga has its root in Sanskrit, and the root word of this particular word yoga is yuj. Now, what does this mean? Yuj, the literal meaning is to yoke or to join or to unite something, two elements together. In the concept, I mean, if I were to talk about the higher concepts, then it is the union of Jivatma with Paramatma, which is what your Vedas and Upanishads will talk about. Now, having learned the literal meaning of yoga, now we will understand how is this word being used, what are the connotations of yuj, and who has used these words or this particular word in the context, right? So if you talk about Panini, one of the oldest, the grammarian that we have had, he has used this particular word yuj in three connotations. So he said yujir yoge, meaning yoga is, or yuj meaning to join something or the union of something. Then he also said yuja samyamane, meaning yuja meaning samyama, meaning control, right? And then he went on to say yuja samadhav. So here the yuja means samadhav, meaning focus or concentration, right? These are the three basic connotations that Panini has used. Now, when we move on to Patanjali, Maharshi Patanjali, in his Yoga Sutras, he is given a connotation which is very similar to Yuja Samadhav, right? Meaning, Yuj means focus or concentration. Now, when we go to Vyasa in Vasabhyasa, which is a commentary on Yoga Sutras, I will again come back to Yoga Sutras again in the following slides. He's used Yuj in connotation with samadhi. Now we know samadhi, we all have a fair idea about samadhi. Of course, Maharshi Patanjali has explained samadhi in a very detailed way and means in his Yoga Sutras. Right? Now, this is an overall understanding or the history of the word yoga and in what ways and means our scholars have used this particular word, the root word yuj. Now, we will now move on to the definition of yoga, right? Now, if we talk about any book which has come out from our Sanatana Dharma, you talk about any book, it could be Yoga Sutras, it could be our Dvaita philosophy, Advaita philosophies, or Upanishads, anything, there isn't a single book which hasn't defined yoga, right? Now, we all know Bhagavad Gita, right? Who doesn't know about Bhagavad Gita? Now, if you have noticed, the 18 chapters in Bhagavad Gita has its names ending with yoga, right? Whether it is Arjuna Vishada Yoga, and you also have to see the beauty or the way they have named these chapters, and where does it start and where does it end, right? So Bhagavad Gita starts with Arjuna Vishada Yoga, where his mind is filled with the thoughts, right? And then it ends with what? The Moksha Yoga towards the end. There he talks about, Krishna talks about the moksha, which is all, which is what yoga is all about, right? So this is how important or how united yoga was with each and every part of our life in those days, in the ancient days. It was a part and parcel of everyone's life and lifestyle, right? So out of all the books that has defined yoga, has given definitions of yoga, I've just taken two books and very famous definitions, which you all have heard about, maybe, but I've seen it in the internet floating. So I've just taken three of them. I'll just put in a little thoughts, into these three definitions of yoga, right? So I've taken two definitions from Bhagavad Gita, where in the second chapter, in the 48th shloka, Krishna tells Arjuna that Yogastha Kuru Karmani Sangam Tyaktva Dhananjaya Siddhir Asiddhyo Samo Bhutva Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. So what does it mean? So here Krishna says that, perform your action with the total detachment to the success or the failures of your actions, and bring in that equanimity of mind, which is samatvam yoga uchyate, is nothing but equanimity of mind, right? So samatvam meaning equanimous, or being balanced in your approach to everything that you do, whether it is success or failure. And then he goes to the 50th shloka in the same chapter, where he talks about yoga karmasu kaushalam. So he goes a step ahead, and there he says, Buddhi yukto jahatiha ube sukrita dukrute. Tasmad yogaya yujjasva yogaha karmasu kaushala. Now, this is a very beautiful shloka, or the line in itself. So what does it mean? The literal translation says that skill in action is yoga. But what skills are we talking about, right? And what is this skill in action is yoga? It sounds very alien to us, and it sounds very weird, right? When you take the literal meaning of it. But look at it. See, you're sitting somewhere and you're watching the sunset, or you're sitting in your office and you're doing your work, or maybe you're sitting here now and listening to my lecture, right? If you're doing this out of joy, then that is yoga, and that is karma yoga. And if you're doing it because somebody is forcing you to do, because you're being told to do it, then that's not yoga. So yoga basically means, how do you perform, how do you communicate anything skillfully with your own self and with everyone around you. Very simple, but highly profound, right? Now, the third interesting definition that I've taken is from the Yoga Sutras of Maharishi Patanjali. I will again come back to Maharishi Patanjali and the Yoga Sutras in detail, but what in his second sutra itself, he explains, or he gives the definition of yoga. He says, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodhaka, right? So Chitta meaning the mind, Vritti meaning in simpler world, it means thoughts, and Nirodha meaning stopping, right? So Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha basically means yoga is that tool which is used to stop all the thoughts in the mind, right? So we will take this up, the last shloka particularly, the Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, in the coming slides again. Now that we have understood the root word of yoga, we have understood how people have defined what yoga is, now we will actually move on to understand the origin and where did this yoga come from, right? So there we are. All right. Now, if you were to look at the texts, and today everyone wants proofs, right? So if I were to talk about it, yes, we had the evidences, the historical evidences of yoga were seen from the pre-Vedic period and all the way till Maharishi Patanjali's period. There were fossil fuels which were the remains of in the Indus Valley civilization, which is like 2700 BC, where people have found the stones and the remains where they had people performing various poses. In fact, people have found some references and remains of Tantra Yoga as well. There are evidences from Indus Valley civilization, and later, of course, there were so many teachings and recordings that we have, which again gives us the proof of yoga, right? Now, in the yogic lore, Shiva is considered to be the Adi Yogi. It is said that around 15,000 years ago, there appeared this human being, or there appeared this person. Nobody knew where he came from. Nobody knew who he was. All that he was doing is he was just sitting and meditating. Now imagine if you see somebody who is just sitting and doing nothing, would you be interested in that person? Obviously not, right? Because that person is not communicating with you. But here there was somebody who was sitting for years and years together. Now slowly people started developing interest. Who is this man? How is he able to sit here for so long? So slowly people started gathering around this person who was there just sitting and doing nothing but closed his eyes and seemed like he was meditating upon something, right? But after so many people gathered, there were thousands of people who gathered around this man. But again, if the person is not talking to you, why would you be interested, right? A lot of people left. They waited and waited. They thought that this person is going to open his eyes, or he might talk something, or he might say something. But when they realized that this person hasn't done any of those, people started to leave. Now, out of all those 1,000 people who gathered, there were just about 7 people who were left, and they waited and they waited, because all that they saw was not even any life in that man, but there were tears of ecstasy which were flowing out of his eyes once in a while. And they thought that if this person can sit here for years without moving, without eating, without talking, nothing, there must be something in him. And we should know, how is that man able to sit here for so long, doing nothing, not talking, not eating, but just breathing, not even opening his eyes. There must be something in him, and we should understand this particular knowledge. And those people, or the 7 people who were left, are called Saptarishis. So it is believed that the knowledge of yoga was transferred from this man, who is none but Adi Yogi himself, to Saptarishis, right? So that is how it is supposed to be originated, and that is what our books would say. That is what the great acharyas will tell you now. Right, again, Shiva Purana or Shiva Samhita will talk about it in a lengthy manner. Now, when we talk about the informations of yoga, where do you find the sources? Of course, we have Shrutis, right? We all know what Shrutis and Smritis are. I don't have to explain you. If there is a need, I can come back to you. Let me know if you all want me to explain Shrutis and Smritis in detail. So we had Vedas and Upanishads, which are the main sources of information. And of course, there are Smritis like your Puranas, your epics, and teachings of Buddhism, Jainism. All of them can be great sources of yoga and the philosophy. Right? Now, when we talk about the history of yoga, how did the knowledge again transfer from that generation till today? We have to mention the Guru Shishya Parampara. And we all know every knowledge that we have today was transferred through Guru Shishya Parampara, right? There were teachings which were transferred for generations on through this parampara, even before a formal written language was formalized, rather, right? Even then, before the Sanskrit was formalized. So, if you talk about Guru Shishya Parampara, it's very in detail explanation. You can find it in Manduka Upanishad. They have very beautifully explained the Guru Shishya Parampara. They've explained the qualities of a Guru. They have explained the qualities of a Shishya and what this system actually meant. They have explained about the four ashramas of life, whether it is brahmacharya or whether it is grihastha, sannyasa, or aranyaka. So they have explained these in a very beautiful way. And in fact, I must at least give you the meaning of the word guru. Right. Again, this comes from Mundaka Upanishad itself. So the guru has its root in Sanskrit, where the meaning of gu means darkness, and the meaning of ru means destroyer. So guru, the word guru, is a combination or a union of two letters, or which is gu and ru, meaning the one who destroys the darkness or one who removes the veil of darkness. So guru is somebody who removes that veil of darkness and gives you that knowledge, right? Such a profound meaning once again. So that's what our Upanishads have given us. Now, knowing that, okay, this is where we have transferred the knowledge through the Guru Shishya Parampara, we will now move on to understand the development of yoga in itself, right? Now, the whole origin or the journey of yoga can be traced or can be broadly divided into four periods mainly. Now, the first one being the Vedic period, which is somewhere between 2700 BC to 1500 BC. Then comes the pre-classical period, which is about 1500 BC to about 500 BC. Then the classical period, which is about 500 BC to about 800 AD. So this is where we come into, right? 800 AD. And then comes the post-classical period, which is from 800 AD all the way till today. I will take you through each of these periods in detail, spending some time in some of these and then running through some of the topics for you to get an understanding, right? Now, you must be wondering, she's talking about yoga and there is no mention of asanas yet. Where are the postures? What is this all about, right? We'll come to all of it towards the end when we get into the classical period and later on as we move into the post-classical period. I'm literally taking you through the beginning where it started in a journey. So we ourselves are doing that journey, through this, right? Now, coming to the first period, which is the Vedic period, which is between 2700 BC to 1500 BC. So what happened in this period, right? Now, we all should know that Vedas existed even before 2700 BC, right? And yoga existed even before that. It is said that yoga started at the very dawn of human civilization in itself, right? Again, Rig Veda was one of the ancient Vedas that you can have, and later on the rest of the Vedas came into picture. Now, when we talk about Vedic period, it's just that all the four Vedas were the Vedas, the knowledge of Vedas was scattered amongst the rishis, and people were spreading the knowledge of Vedas across. By the time they reached 2700 BC, they were able to put it under four groups and then propagate the knowledge accordingly. So when I say the emergence of the Vedas, it does not mean that the Vedas came into picture only in 2700 BC. No, Vedas existed like yoga. Veda existed much before that. It's just that there was a systematic approach to it. The rishis put it under four groups and they started teaching these. So this was the period when the teachings of Vedas took the importance and people were following the teachings of these Vedas, and rishis or yogis were considered to be the head, and people started following these rishis to understand and go deeper into the knowledge of Vedas, right? Now, when we talk, I'll spend a little bit of time here talking about Vedas and what we have today from those days. Right now, we all know Veda is not an alien. Again, like yoga, a Veda is not an alien concept anymore. We all know about Vedas. Broadly, we have four Vedas. You have Rig Veda, you have Yajur Veda, you have Sama Veda, and you have Atharvana Veda. Right now, what do they have? Right. So Rigveda talks about certain elements, Yajurveda talks about certain elements, and likewise Samaveda talks about music and culture, and Atharvaveda talks about the rest of the elements, the day-to-day activities. Right. Now, these Vedas have four parts. So every Veda, if you take, they have four parts, can be divided into four parts. The first one being Samhitas, the second one being Brahmanas, third one Aranyakas, and fourth one are Upanishads. Now, what do Samhitas have, right? So Samhitas are nothing but is the first part of Veda where you will see mantras or chants and all of those, right? And then you go to the second part of Veda, which is Brahmanas, which basically has the rituals. They've defined, okay, this is how you're supposed to do this particular rituals or process, right? So because Samhitas and Brahmanas mostly talk about these rituals and they have mantras or hymns which are talking about or praising the deity, they form the Karma Kanda of the Vedas. So broadly, again, Vedas can be divided into two parts, Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. Somewhere you will also see three parts, but broadly we can divide this into two parts, apart from these four bases, these four parts that we have for each Veda. Right now, the Aranyakas and Upanishads form the last part, which is the Jnana Kanda. So why are they called Jnana Kanda? It's because it is here in Aranyakas. So basically, Aranyakas are nothing but appendages of Brahmanas, meaning they are like an attachment to the Brahmana. But it is here that people started going into the forest. They started meditating. They started gaining a lot more knowledge about life in itself, about Brahman, about Atman, and they started putting this down. And that is why it became a forest treaty, right? So because people moved into the forest and they started realizing and experiencing the truth. And then comes the most important part, which is the Upanishads, right? They're also called Vedantas because it is the Anta of the Vedas and hence Vedanta. Right now, I keep talking about Upanishads everywhere, that the word Upanishads itself gives you a hint of Guru Shishya Parampara. So the meaning Upanishads itself literally can be transferred into something like sitting nearby, devotedly nearby to somebody, which is your Guru. Right. So if you see those days, Upanishads or the knowledge of Vedas were only transferred to Guru Shishya Parampara, and also to those Shishyas who the Gurus thought were deserving and worthy enough of transferring this knowledge. Mind you, the knowledge of Vedas and Upanishads were not given to everyone. It was only given to those who the Gurus thought were worthy enough to be given, who they thought that these are the Shishyas who would take this knowledge to the rest of the country or rest of the world in those days. Right? So this is in detail about the Vedic period. Now, I just want to leave you all with a thought. Every Veda has its own shakas or branches, right? And it is said that Rig Veda had about 21 branches, Yajurveda had about 109 branches, and Atharva Veda had about 50 branches. And Samaveda, it's also called as Sahasra Veda because it had 1,000 shakas or branches. Now, it is also believed that every branch of these Vedas had its own Upanishads, right? Meaning, so we had all these shakas, 21 and 109 and 50 and 1,000, adding up to 1,180 shakas. Meaning, we actually had 1180 Upanishads to begin with. Now we will come to a part where how many Upanishads do we actually have today, right? I will cover that in the later slide. Just leaving you with this thought, remember the number. Now we move into the pre-classical period. Remember, the whole development of yoga can be classified under 4 periods. The first one being the Vedic period. Second one is the pre-classical period, somewhere between 1700 BC to 500 BC. So what happened in this period was Upanishads took the center stage. The teachings of Upanishads is what people started following, right? Now we left from the previous slide at 1180 Upanishads. Ideally, we should have had. But thanks to the constant invasions, constant influx of other culture and other empire from the rest of the world, today we are just left with 108 Upanishads, right? These are 108 Upanishads that we have known and we have figured out. Just 108 out of 1180, right? I'm just leaving you with this thought. Imagine what would have happened in those thousands of years. Imagine the amount of constant invasions that the country has gone through, right? Now, out of these 108 Upanishads, 10 of them are considered as main Upanishads. So which are these main Upanishads? There is Katha, there is Isha, Kena, Prashna, Mundaka, Mandukya, Taittiriya, Chandogya, etc. Right? Now, you might think, so we have 108 Upanishads. Why do we have only 10 main Upanishads? That is because the Acharyas or the Sadhakas of the later parts of the journey, most of them have covered or commented about these 10 Upanishads, which fairly gives us an idea that most of the knowledge of the Upanishads, if you can combine these 10, you can take largely the maybe 99% of the Upanishads teaching from these 10 Upanishads, because Acharyas, Sadhakas have commented on these Upanishads, and that is why these Upanishads come under the 10 main Upanishads. Now, of course, there are other Upanishads also. There is Shakta Upanishads, there is Vaishnava Upanishads, and there comes Yoga Upanishads, which are 20 in number. It could be Adhyaya Taraka Upanishads or Brahma Vidya Upanishads, Amrita Bindu Upanishads. Each Upanishad talking about one exclusive concept. For example, Brahma Vidya Upanishad talks only about Hamsa Vidya or the Brahma Vidya. Like Amrita Bindu talks about the Sahasrara Chakra and all of that. I'm not going in depth into these. These are the Upanishads that we are talking about, and this was the period where Upanishads actually took the center stage and people started understanding and reading and learning a lot more about Upanishads, right? Now, these Upanishads have given us a lot of knowledge in terms of what is it that you can learn from these, right? Or rather the teachings of Upanishads, right? Now, I am just covering few of them here. There are multiple thousands of learnings, teachings that you can take from Upanishads. The first one being Maya and Avidya. It's such a beautiful, you must have all heard, everything, ye to moh Maya hai, ye to ye hai. So what is this Maya and what is this Avidya all about? Because these are the two concepts which you will find in literally every Upanishads, every book that is being written later on, a commentary on Upanishads and all of that. So it is said that Upanishad says that it is the Brahman who gives you this Maya, or he, because of his Maya, makes you believe that Brahman is not one, but many, right? And on your part, it is your avidya that makes you see multiple Brahman instead of one. Right? Very profound, but yet very simple, no complexities, very simple way to understand Maya and Avidya. It's Brahman who shows you that Maya. It is because of our own Avidya that we are unable to see that this is Maya, and we end up seeing a number of Brahmans, right? Now, moving on to Panchakoshas. If you have all attended yesterday's Bhargavji's session, he spoke about self-development, right? And he mentioned that that it has to happen from an outward to inward approach. That is from here, Panchakoshas. Imagine those days, thousands of 10,000, 15,000 years ago. The concepts that were built are relevant even today. Such is the importance of Vedas and Upanishads in everyone's life, right? So Panchakoshas is explained very in detail in Taittiriya Upanishad. It talks about
Mansa, we lost your audio.
can you hear me now?
Yeah. In between, just for a second or two, we had lost you. That's
okay.
That's perfect.
All right.
No problem.
Okay. Okay. So Panchakoshas is taken from Taittiriya Upanishads, very beautifully explained the self-development concept that you have to move from the outward to the inward journey, right? So it says that in your subtle body, there are 5 layers, right? You obviously can't see it, but today there are quantum physics which talk about these very clearly. Right. This particular concept says that you have 5 layers in your body, starting with the outermost layer called Annamaya Kosha, Anna meaning the rice or the food that you take, which Annamaya Kosha is fed by the food that you take. And then comes the Pranamaya Kosha, which is your breath, which lives or thrives on the breath or the air that you inhale. And then comes the Manomaya Kosha, which is your mind, right? Now, it is here the third kosha which acts as a bridge between the 2 which are on the outside and the 2 which are on the inside. Now, it is after Manomaya kosha you move inward towards Vijnanamaya kosha, meaning your intellect, right? It is here where you start realizing that, okay, this is what self-realization is all about. This is how I am supposed to be achieving my moksha or nirvana. And at the end, you have Anandamaya Kosha, which is the blissful body where you get absolute freedom from everything else. And that is where you experience the Brahman. Now, moving on to Panchabhutas, again called Tanmatras. Again, you would have all heard about this Akasha, Vayu, Ap meaning Jal, Tejas is fire, and Prithvi meaning the Prithvi or the earth element. Then comes the 4 states of self. This also, yesterday, Bhargavji had just mentioned about it in one of those slides so this talks about, again, this is also scientifically proven. Today, you have various levels of sleep where you have REM sleep and deep sleep and all of that. That also has a connection with the same 4 states of self that we are talking about. So the Jagaran, Swapna Avastha or Shushupti and Turiya. Turiya being the highest state where the realization or the experience of Brahman takes place. Apart from this, I'm also going to talk about self-realization. It's a very beautiful concept where Upanishad says that self-realization just needs right amount of knowledge to remove that avidya and to bring in that right knowledge. It also says, so how do you bring this right knowledge or how do you gain this right knowledge? So it gives you 3 steps. These 3 steps are again explained in Bhagavatam, if I'm not wrong, even in Bhagavad Gita, where these 3 steps are spoken about. So it says that there are only 3 steps to attain self-knowledge or right knowledge, which is Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam, right? So what is Shravanam? Shravanam is hearing. So you listen to your teachers, you listen to everyone who is around you, and you just listen. That's it in the first stage of learning. In the second stage, which is Mananam, you go a step higher and you start questioning those, whatever that you have heard. Okay, I heard this. So you start clarifying those doubts with your teachers or with your well-being, your well-wishers or people around you. Oh, you know what? I heard this. Is this true? Or my teacher said this. So is this true? So what do you think? So you start discussing it. You start finding out, you trying to understand the concepts that you have learned. And the last stage being the nididhyasanam, which is very, very important in studies, which we all can imbibe in our own, lives. Nididhyasanam basically meaning contemplating. So contemplating on what you have heard, what you have understood, and then coming to your own conclusion and not believing what one has said, not even your teacher. Your teacher would have told you something, but it is you, through your own meditation and your own contemplation, you are supposed to understand what your teacher has said and experience it. And that is the last stage of self-realization, or rather attaining the right knowledge by your own self, right? Something that we can imbibe even today. So these are some of the teachings that has come out from the Upanishads. Like I said, multiple and millions of teachings that you can take out from Upanishads. I've just covered few of them. Now we move on to the next one, which is very, very important in the yoga that we talk about today. So what is classical period? And so this period is somewhere between 500 BC to 800 AD. Now, let me also tell you that these period that I'm talking about are tentative and approximate. They are not the actual period. These are approximate period that is being mentioned, because some books say that Patanjali belonged to the 3rd BC and somebody said he belongs to the 5th BC. So generally, today we have come to a conclusion that this period is somewhere between 3rd to the 6th century BC, right? Now, it is in this particular period where Maharshi Patanjali came into picture. Now, he's the one who, all this while, yoga was there everywhere. Everyone spoke about yoga. Somebody said, this is yoga. Someone said, this is what yoga is. Everyone said yoga is so and so, so and so. So there comes Maharshi Patanjali, and he puts in a systematic approach, a discipline to what yoga is all about. He talks about it in detail in the Yoga Sutras. It's one of the must-read books that, if you haven't read, you must start reading. It will be your gateway to spiritual journey, I would say. Something as good, and I consider it to be an equivalent to Bhagavad Gita, because every page you open, there is something that you can take out of it, for your own life. Such is the importance of Yoga Sutras. Now, Maharshi Patanjali gave a very systematic, understanding to the whole concept of yoga. And what he did was, he wrote these Yoga Sutras, just 195 Yoga Sutras, very one-line short, not more than 5 words to maybe 15 words in each of these Yoga Sutras. He classified these Yoga Sutras under 4 chapters. I'll come back to those chapters in a while. I'll talk about the 8 elements that I've shown in the slide. Now, it was Maharshi Patanjali who spoke about Ashtanga Yoga. You might have heard about Ashtanga Yoga multiple times, right? It is what it is, what you see here on the slide. So what is Ashtanga Yoga? Now, Ashtanga Yoga is a step-by-step, mind you, it's a progressive step-by-step element for you to reach your ultimate goal of your life, which is Samadhi or Moksha or Nirvana, whatever that you may call. Right. So he starts with yama, then he goes on to niyama, asana, pranayama, all of that. Right. So what is yama? So yamas are basically the social rules that one must follow when one is living in a society. So again, I'm coming back to yesterday's session by Bhargavji, where he mentioned all of these. He said Satya, or he said Asteya, Brahmacharya, and Aparigraha. We'll go slightly deep into it. So Satya, we all know, talking the truth. Ahimsa. Now, this is a very beautiful concept where Ahimsa is not only an ahimsa that you're doing to others, it is to your own body and mind. So you following ahimsa with your own self and also with everyone else around you, right? Asteya meaning, again, I would say, living a very content life, right? Not stealing anything from anybody. Asteya basically means non-stealing, meaning you don't steal anything from anybody. This here again, he is not just talking about materialistic items, but also the ideas. You don't steal someone else's idea as your own idea, right? You don't steal any materialistic items either. So that is what Asteya is all about. Then comes Brahmacharya. Brahmacharya in today's world has been misinterpreted. Brahmacharya ideally means uh, a balanced approach in everything that you do, right? That's in a simpler word, that's what Brahmacharya is all about. It's right. And then comes Aparigraha, beautiful concept, non-possessiveness, not being possessive about materialistic items, about your own body, about your own mind. Again, somewhere giving you a hint of vairagya or detachment. Now we move on to niyama. So niyamas are nothing but individual rules which one should follow for one's own growth. So what are these niyamas? So there are 5 of them. So swacha means cleanliness. Again, cleanliness of your surrounding, but your own self. Being clean from inside out, mentally, physically, and your own surrounding. Then comes Santosha. Santosha here meaning happiness, but more than that, Santosha means contentment. Being content with everything that you have, with everything that you will get or you are going to get, or whatever has happened in the past. Then comes the 3 most important elements of Ashtanga Yoga. These 3 are also what you call today as Kriya Yoga. These 3 elements form the basis of Kriya Yoga, which is tapas, swadhyaya, and Ishvara pranidhana. Now, tapas is nothing but austerities, or you take a sankalpa and you say that, okay, this is what I'm going to do for the rest remaining 35 days or 45 days. You might have seen the 75-day hard day challenges and all of that on Insta. That is what tapas is all about. So you take a sankalpa and you ensure that you do it. Now, it could be physical, it could be mental, it could be anything, but have that guts and courage to follow it once you have made the sankalpa. Then we move on to Swadhyaya. So Swadhyaya is what I referred to in the earlier slide as self-realization, the 3 steps, Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. Swadhyaya is very, very similar to that, or you can merge them into one. So doing your own studies to understand, reading about Vedas and Upanishads, understanding these concepts and contemplating it on your own to figure out if what is being said is right or wrong. And then comes the last, but not the least, most important element, which is Ishvara Pranidhana, a complete surrender to the higher or the supreme self. Now, while it is mentioned as the last niyama, it is one of the first element that Maharishi Patanjali talks about in the first chapter in Yoga Sutras itself. So that is the importance of Ishvara Pranidhana. He says, anything you do, you surrender yourself to that supreme God, right? And that is where even the pranava japa, meditation, samadhi, everything comes later, but Ishvara Pranidhana comes much before that, at least in Yoga Sutras. Then Maharishi Patanjali goes to asanas. So we all know asanas, right? Postures. But as per Patanjali, he says that stiram sukham asana. So what does that mean? So stira means stability, sukha means comfortable, pleasure is asana. So he is saying that anything that gives you that stability and that pleasure and sukham in that stability is asana. What he's trying to say is anything that you do in life, if you are stable enough, if you're finding your joy and pleasure in what you are doing, then that is asana. Today we call asanas as postures, which is the typical English literation of asana. But asana is much beyond that. And again, you will see asana is just one part of the entire Ashtanga Yoga, and it comes three, right? I will also talk more about this. Now,
Mantra, just to give you a time check, it's 7:30.
yes, yes. So, asanas, Maharishi Patanjali has, out of 195 sutras, he's given just 3 sutras for asanas. One, he's defined what asana is, and then he's also gone on to say that prayatna shaitilya ananta samapattityam. He said that asana should be such, whatever that you do in life should be such that your efforts in getting into that should cease and you start finding the infinity there. Right? So again, he's not talking about postures. He's saying that everything that you do in life, as long as you stop putting in effort, meaning it comes so effortlessly to you that you don't have to put in any more effort. And at the same time, you find so much joy in doing it, is asana. Very simple, right? And then he goes on to pranayama, which is the fourth step we all know, which is the breathing exercises. Then comes pratyahara, again, one of the topic that is spoken widely in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna explains the importance of pratyahara. Pratyahara is nothing but detaching yourself from everything. So for example, it is something like, you see a tortoise, right? The minute you touch a tortoise, it withdraws its limbs, right? It goes into that shell. So that's exactly what pratyahara is. So withdrawing your senses from the outward or the worldly pleasures is pratyahara. And now we move on to the higher levels, which are dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Dharana means, Patanjali again has given a very beautiful explanation to dharana, which he says that deshabandha chittasya dharana, meaning desha meaning region or a particular point or a particular center. Bandha means locking. Chitta again means mind. So he says desha bandha chittasya dharana, meaning locking your mind in one particular point is dharana. And dhyana goes a level higher, where you're able to do this for a very long period of time. Then it becomes dhyana. And then comes the samadhi, where you are even beyond dhyana and dharana. You moved much beyond the worldly associations and moved into the later stages of realizing your own Atma and realizing Brahma. Right? Now, beautiful concept. Again, this is, like I said, these are progressive in nature. You start with yamas, then you start with niyamas, then you do asana, then you come to pranayama, and then you go into next steps. So any of you who are looking to start your spiritual journey, if you're already not into it, this is the place that you should start, right? You start with small little elements of these and then move into it and then come closer to it. Of course, it takes a number of births to get there, but this is where you actually start from. If you happen to read Yoga Sutras, these are given in detail. Every element of these is mentioned, explained very beautifully in the Yoga Sutras by Maharishi Patanjali. I'm skipping on to the next slide, which is what we see yoga today, which is the post-classical period, which is somewhere from 800 AD all the way till today. Now, because that period is so huge, again, scholars have divided that into two, which is your medieval period and the modern period. Medieval period can be considered as somewhere between, again, 800 AD to 1700 AD, and modern is post 1700 AD till today. So what happened in the medieval period, right? This is a very, very important period again for the yoga that you see today, because initially, all the three elements that are mentioned, the commentary on Vedas and Upanishads, the Hatha Yoga and the Bhakti Yoga, they all existed in that period simultaneously. They all coexisted, rather. So there was commentary on Vedas and Upanishads written. There was the Dvaita Siddhanta, Advaita Siddhanta, Vishishta Advaita Siddhantas, which emerged with a commentary on these Vedas. the Shad Darshanas, the Indian philosophy, the Shad Darshanas that we talk about, right? The Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Uttara, and Purva Mimamsa, they all emerged in this particular period. Multiple mentions of yoga, they've all explained what yoga is, like I mentioned again. Now, coming to Hatha Yoga again emerged from Tantra. Tantra again is a very, very as old as yoga in itself, or it's a part of yoga. But Hatha Yoga came out of Tantra Yoga because a lot of scholars at that period believed that it would be difficult in the future for people to follow the Tantra and this together. So they separated Hatha Yoga from Tantra and they brought out Hatha Yoga as a separate concept. So Hatha Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga, if you see, they have very slight difference. In Ashtanga Yoga, you saw that yamas and niyamas were mentioned in the beginning, and then we came down to asana. Wherein in Hatha Yoga, because we had gone a lot more into the future then, the scholars believed that it would be very difficult for people to start following these yamas and niyamas initially and then do the asanas. So they said we will reverse it. So they reversed the order. So yamas and niyamas came in later. First, they said you cleanse your body. So Shatkriyas, you might have seen Baba Ramdev churning his stomach, right? That is one of the Shatkriyas that is spoken about in Hatha Yoga. So Noli or Jalniti or Sutraniti that you see, all of them are part of this Hatha Yoga. And I'll come to the next one. Hatha Yoga also gave rise to this particular cult called Nath cult. We'll talk about it a little later. And of course, Bhakti Yoga, we all know Kabir Das or Tulsi Das or Mirabai or Purandara Dasa in the south. The emergence of the whole Bhakti Yoga came into a picture in this particular period. And then we talk about the modern period. So this is what I was talking about all this while. Coming back to the Hatha Yoga, the Natha Parampara started in this particular period in itself. It was Matsyendranath, a great sage. It is believed that Matsyendranath himself got the knowledge of yoga when he overheard the conversation between Shiva and Parvati, when Shiva was narrating the entire yoga to Parvati. So that is the Shiva Samhita I'm talking about. So Matsyendranath, apparently he was a fish. He overheard that, and then he later born as a human being, and hence he is called as Matsyendranath. You all, today we have someone very well-known personality from the Nath community, ruling the very own state that I'm sitting and giving this lecture on. So Yogi Adityanath belongs to this Nath Parampara. Imagine the history and the Parampara that he belongs to. It was again in this period that Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Geranda Samhita, a lot of books on Hatha Yoga came up, and today also we see these books being circulated, and one of the references to yoga or people who follow Hatha Yoga, right? And almost at the fag end of the workshop. So this is where we are today. The modern period, again, we have divided into three parts. 1700 to 1900, we had some really great personalities. We had Ramana Maharshi, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Paramahamsa Yogananda, Swami Vivekananda, all of them who took the knowledge of yoga across the world, right? Not just in India, but across the world. They popularized this concept of yoga everywhere. And I'm sure you all know what happened in 1893, which paved the way for yoga that we see today, which is, of course, the most spoken about historical event even today, which is Swami Vivekananda's talk in Chicago. That is what actually took or opened the doors of yoga to everyone in the Western world, right? And then we come to the contemporary times, be it the Krishnamachar or B.K.S. Iyengar or Pattabhi Joyce, mostly following the Mysore yoga or the Ashtanga yoga that you are talking, must have heard, Desikachar. Swami Shivananda Ashram in Bihar, and Satyananda Ashram again, Kuvalayananda, that is Kaivalyadham in Lonavala, and Swami Rama of the Hamsa Vidya tradition, Sri Aurobindo, and a lot of them, you would have heard about all of them today. So these are the personalities who actually popularized yoga. Again, a lot of credit goes to these personalities also to developing this yoga in the Western and in the Indian, context. And it is because of these people, because of their books and their talks, that we still see yoga of today's yoga, that whatever that you see in today's time. We all know about these people, so I'm not getting into details about their work in terms of the books that they have written. If you all get time, please do read about Sri Aurobindo, or even Krishnamacharya or Pattabhi. The amount of work that they have done is immense, and they have put in so much effort to ensure that this particular tradition does not lose its way going forward. All right, this is where we are. So, all in all, this is what we have learned. It's not just a physical tool, but it's a spiritual discipline to control your mind. It's not just asanas, it's a lot more about gaining that knowledge, experiencing the Brahman, going deeper into understanding our own scriptures and figuring out what is the scriptures have in store for all of us, and thereby understanding yoga in detail. And of course, the entire aim of yoga is self-realization, knowing that that is the ultimate truth, and that is where it leads us to. And ending this with the beautiful line from Rigveda, which says, Ano Badraha Kratavo Yantu Vishwataha. Let the noble thoughts come to us from all directions. Thank you so much.
I think there was a reference slide that you may want to show.
I will just talk about it. I have the book.
Okay.
I shall show the book. I have just taken everything from one single book, which is what gave me this all knowledge in. Book is not in a great condition. I use it day in and out. This is the book I'm talking about. You can see, right? It is a book. It's a level 2 book, which is released from the Ayush Ministry itself for people who are wanting to write the level 2 exam from YCB, which is the Yoga Certification Board. Everything is mentioned. Everything that I spoke about is mentioned in this. I might have gone a little detail into Vedas and Upanishads, which is also, if anybody wants to know, I can let you know. So if you want to go deep into Vedas and Upanishads and you want to understand it and know it from the horse's mouth, then you can always refer to books which are from the Adyar Library from Chennai. It was in 1930s where all these Vedas were translated in English and were released to the whole world. The erstwhile Madras, now called the Chennai. So Adyar Library Chennai has all of these books. If anybody wants to know, I'll have to figure out if they are available out or not. I'm not very sure. A lot of it I've also learned from my teachers. But if you want to go in detail, this is the book you can start with. And I also read this book. This is again my go-to book. It's Light on the Yoga Sutras by B.K.S. Iyengar. Very basic, very, very basic. There are a lot of free courses which are available online if you find out on Yoga Sutras, which will take you a lot more deeper into the world of yoga. Like I said, let's come out of that myth or understanding that yoga is just about asanas. Trust me, asanas is just a small, very little drop in the ocean. There is so much more to learn about yoga for us to explore and learn about.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Manasa, for taking us through this journey from the ancient times to the modern times in context of yoga. And I really believe that this has been very, very useful and enlightening for all our participants, because as you rightly pointed out in the beginning as well as towards the concluding part of your lecture, that we have started looking at yoga in a very limited perspective, despite the fact that it has so much of philosophy and life lessons to offer. So fantastic erudition. There are appreciative messages for you
Thank you so much.
in the chat box. Very informative presentation. Awesome session with much clarity, good delivery, and language. Sorry, language. Kiran Gupta ji is saying, just glued to the seat. It seems like a long poem being recited in a beautiful manner, song to the ears, and fantastic session. So let's open the floor for discussion. I think there was some comment earlier by Sri Devi ji, where I think she was referring to some talk by Sadhguru, where he has referred to GPS as Guru Positioning System in one of his talks. I think that's very interesting. Manish ji said Aranyakas are like the commentaries on the Karma Kand. And I think there were few comments. Upanishad means sitting at the feet of the Guru. That is what, there's some comments that I could see from the chat box. Great. Prabharao ji is saying Yoga and Yoga Sutra has always been a mystic concept. You took us to the enchanting journey of yoga from ancient to the contemporary world. I think that is what is important. Tracing the roots in Bharatiya Gyan Parampara is extremely crucial. And I know it must have been very challenging for you to compress all of this into 55 minutes. So hats off. And it is really evident that you speak so passionately about yoga, that you have invested so much time and energy into it. There's a question. Is there any book to read for Vedas which is in Sanskrit and Hindi? This is a question by Jaspal ji.
I will have to check if there is anything in Hindi, but I must say that it is always good and prefer to read these Vedas and Upanishads. If you cannot read Sanskrit and comprehend it, then read it in your mother tongue. Right? Mother tongue is very important, because the English translations, English, again, the lack of words or the vocabulary in English and in any other language cannot do justice to Vedas and Upanishads. It is only the Indian languages that can do justice to the translation of Vedas and Upanishads. So I would urge you all to read it, please, in your mother tongue. That would also promote the mother tongue and also to understand it better. Let me check and come back to you if there is any Hindi book as such for Vedas and Upanishads. I'm not aware. I have been reading about it in my mother tongue, so I've not really gone through anything else. I'm also trying to read it in Sanskrit so that I can also understand a little bit of Sanskrit. But let me please come back to you on this, sir.
Yes, sure. I think we can also put this question to our other experts, and they may also be able to throw some light,
Yes.
especially Professor Mala Kapadia and Shivakumarji. They might definitely be able to share some readings in Hindi. We will get back to you, Jaspalji, on this. There's a question by Svetri Selviji. Please, I apologize if I have not pronounced your name correctly. Is Ashtanga Yoga talking about the 8 steps of practicing yoga?
Yes, Ashtanga Yoga. See, today what we see Ashtanga Yoga is a totally different yoga than what Maharishi Patanjali spoke about. Yes, if you're talking about that, what Maharishi Patanjali spoke about, that Ashtanga Yoga, yes, that is how you practice. You start with the yamas and niyamas. If you think it is difficult to speak Satya all the time or to practice those elements of yamas and niyamas, start with asanas, because at the end of the day, practicing these postures will give you a lot of stability And it is also, these asanas are so meditative in their own way, and they will open the doors for you to do the rest of the elements, right? So yamas and niyamas and asanas, you can here and there exchange them and change the order, because we are in Kali Yuga today. You can sort of, it's very difficult to follow one after the other. That's why if you see the practices today, people do pranayama, asanas and everything together, and then they start following the earlier one, yamas and niyamas. But having practiced it my own self, I would say that it's very difficult to even do pranayama for 5 minutes. Sitting in one place and meditating, or rather breathing practices, is very difficult. So start with asana practices, slowly move on to pranayama, and these two will open the doors for everything else. You don't even have to then ask anybody. You will start doing it on your own. These practices will come to you by default, right?
Correct.
That's the beauty of yoga. It will start taking you way higher and a step ahead. So you then don't have to do anything. You just put in the basic foundation work. Rest, everything will happen by default.
Correct. Interesting. So Neha is also in the session, Manasa, and
Ah,
she's asking. I think it's a very good question. She's saying, "Dhanyavad for taking us on the trail of yoga." Very rightly said. And she's asking, how important is the role of guru for someone on the path of yoga?
uh, I would say it is everything. You cannot do anything, or anything for that matter in life, without a guru, right? Starts from your own parents being your guru, to then joining a school or everything. In the path of yoga, it's very, very important to have a guru. Now, like I said, you when you start with your asanas, start with a basic teacher or a guru, because every guru is different. Again, my own experience and my understanding is that, you are not supposed to compare one guru to another guru. Again, never make that mistake. So you move on. The gurus will tell you to go into, if a guru is genuine, that guru will tell you, okay, this is all that I can teach you. You now move on to the higher level, right? But guru is very important. And when the time is right, they will come in front of you. You will see something or the other will pull you into it, and you will do it, right? And start with a basic yoga classes somewhere, wherever you find, where whatever is feasible economically, and financially and time wise, and whatever is convenient to you. That would be the beginning. Don't look for an ideal guru. All that I would say is Ishvara Pranidhana, complete surrender to your guru. Just do what your guru says. No questioning, nothing else. I follow this with everything that I do, be it my runs, be it my workouts, be it my yoga or anything. I close my eyes and do what my coaches ask me to do. And it works. It works wonders. So please, you can go to anybody. That will open the doors for you, like I said, but start from somewhere. Don't
Sure.
keep looking for somebody and then not do it. You would rather start from somewhere and then start with it.
Correct. Definitely. I think this aspect of surrendering to the guru, it permeates all aspects of Bharatiya Gyan
Absolutely.
Parampara. You can
Absolutely.
be in any discipline, and of course, total surrender doesn't mean that you don't have the freedom and the scope to question or engage in a dialogue with the guru. That is not what it really means, but it definitely means that you trust someone who's more knowledgeable, more intellectual, more enlightened in that particular domain to take
Yes.
you forward. So this aspect of surrendering to the guru, I believe it holds true for all aspects of pursuing Bharatiya knowledge. Great.
Absolutely.
Let's take another question by Sri Devi ji. She's asking, Madam, is it right to say that listening to the heart is self-realization?
Uh, Not really. I wouldn't say that. Self-realization goes much beyond that. Uh, it's not just heart and mind and body, right? It is very, very vast, but very minute at the same time. So listening to the heart, how do you even know what is, whether that what you're listening is what your heart is saying, or what your mind is saying, or some other influence which you have seen and heard is talking, right? Unless until you're able to separate those, and you have that awareness where you know that this is what my mind is saying, but it is not actually what my mind is saying, but it is what I've heard which is influencing my mind to talk, right? How do you know what right now what I'm feeling is lazy, or I'm actually not up to it, that I'm not able to do it? Or how do you know it? Are you able to differentiate those thoughts very clearly? Are you able to make a judgment for your own self that what you are feeling right now is void of all the influences, everything that you've seen and heard? Then yes, to an extent. But in today's time, it's very, very difficult. So my answer would be no, unless you have reached that level of awareness where you're able to differentiate between the voice of the heart and the mind.
Sure. Thank you, Sridevi ji. I hope it answers your question and you get some direction and some idea in terms of thinking about listening to your heart. Okay, there's a request to share Mansa ji's Instagram page. Mansa, if you're, I don't know how active you are, but we will share it with
I'm
our.
sorry, not very active on Insta, to be honest. You might just see my running posts on Insta. While I would want to get active on social media, I'm not an extrovert where I would be able to do that anytime soon. But yes, you can follow me on Insta, and I'm hoping that I will be able to put up a lot more content which would be useful to the rest of the world.
Yes, I think after this session, you are definitely going to have more social media followers. Great. So, yes, I think there was an additional question about the role of the guru by Selvi ji, and she's asking if we do not practice yoga without the guru's advice, within the guru's Chhatrachaya, does it produce a negative effect?
Absolutely not. It doesn't produce a negative effect at all. In fact, it will take you to an awareness level where you will want to have a guru. It's a good thing to start on your own, but you may only reach a certain level and you might stagnate there because ultimately for you to go do your higher journey, you will need a guru at one point in time. So will it have a negative effect? Absolutely not. Right? It will give you a lot of awareness. Your own awareness about your body and mind will be a lot higher once you start doing your own practice. And Swadhyaya in yoga plays a very important role. So please, if you're doing something on your own, continue to do it till the time you feel you need a guru.
Good.
And that's when you go for it.
Correct. We'll take two more questions and then we will move to the closing part of the session. There's a question by Manasa Chandagariji. Can yoga be considered a science, an art, or a spiritual practice, or all three?
It's everything. It's a combination of everything, and you can't separate one from the other. Your spiritual journey starts from here, and it is that art and science of that spiritual journey itself. So you can't separate them, right? It's all merged together, will go hand in hand in taking you up.
I think it's a good question whether it's a science or an art or a spiritual practice. I think we need more study into yoga philosophy and much more experience to be able to kind of give
we have a lot of study on the practices. If you talk about the meditation and pranayama, a lot of meditation practices that S. Vyasa has done, S. Vyasa University has scientific proof with them. In fact, it is when you do pranayama, you're actually activating your parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for bringing your heart rate down. So there are evidences a lot of evidences out there in the open. But the question is, do you need evidence to do all of these, or do you want to do it on your own and then feel it for your own self, right? So we don't ask for an evidence if there is air here or not. You're still breathing, right?
Correct.
So why do we then start asking for evidences like these or scientific proof? We don't really need it. So sorry if it sounds offensive or defensive rather. There are a lot of things that once you start going deeper into the yogas and Upanishads, that you have to unlearn everything that you have learned to go deeper into it, right? So detach yourself from the knowledge that you have earned so far, and be humble enough to or be okay with the fact that I am okay to not question this and then understand it later on, because a lot of questions that you would have in your mind will be answered as you go deeper into it. So again, you have to be worthy enough to get that answer from the universe, get that answer from the guru himself, or even get that answer from science in itself. So don't seek for proofs right now, go for it.
Yes, correct. I think this is some kind of challenge that we tend to face in the context of Bharatiya Gyan Parampara, especially as it is being applied in the modern education system, because they have been so deeply seeped and trained into Western paradigms where proof and evidence is being emphasized upon, kind of an Orientalist mindset. And I think we are wrongfully approaching Bharatiya Gyan Parampara also in that manner, that if we are talking about IKS in the classroom, we constantly need to provide evidences and proofs. Even I come from that school of thought that, okay, there should be some emphasis on evidence and proofs, but that should not become an obsession in terms of approaching Bharatiya Gyan Parampara as far as we are teaching it to our students. Okay, there is a request for your email address, Manasa. If you give permission, we will share it with the participants. If not, that's
Absolutely.
fine.
Yes.
Okay. So unfortunately, we can't take any more questions, but we would like to close this session by requesting Manasaji to reflect on her experience of being at Kumbh Mela for the last 2 or 3 days, and how challenging it has been transitioning from the corporate world to this side of the table. Just very
All right.
briefly, if you could share.
Yes. I'll start with the second question. It was challenging, right? So there is no fixed salary that comes to your account at the end of the month when you transition from the corporate life to anything else in life. But that's the challenge that you have to take. And a lot of times we keep contemplating, we keep procrastinating, and then there is so much of thought. You keep thinking. So when you really want to do something, stop thinking and do it, and just do it. And if you are passionate about it, and if you're really into it, you will do it. And like how you would succeed in a corporate life, right? You don't start with a 1 lakh salary on day one. You would have started at 10,000, then eventually 10 years down the line, you would have reached a particular package. Likewise over here, treat this as your corporate job and go on. That's what I would say. But do it. However, ensure that your financial needs are taken care of, have enough savings and all of that. As long as you have that side of, when we're all in this world, in our samsara, we have that also to be taken care of. So ensure that you have sufficient financial means to do it, have a backup, and eventually get into it slowly, one step at a time. But don't get frustrated. Things take time. It takes its own time to grow and flourish. So have that patience to get there. Right now, coming to the second question, Kumbh Mela, it was stunning. I mean, I realized that what you see on social media is so I would say deceiving, so materialistic. And we are also seeing a lot of posts, and you see comments of people who are talking about the posts that people put on social media, saying that, oh, people are just showing, they are just showing off by putting their dip pictures in the social media and all of that. But let me tell you, it changes your life. I would just say that that one dip or two dips that you take is worth the experience of walking miles and miles, traveling, spending that amount of time and energy, and going through that mental and physical stress. And forget about everything else. Just be there for that experience. If not a spiritual experience, it will still teach you. You will learn at least one small little thing when you come out of that place. It will take you back to your right. A lot many times in life, we there are questions that we come up, that will come up in our mind. Do I belong here? Where do I belong? Do I belong to this or this, or am I actually doing this or not? There are too many confusions, right? You go there and you stay there. You see people around you, see how people lead their life, and that is when you understand life is not all what we think it is about, right? There's so much beyond, and there is so much that we are yet to understand, yet to experience. So this will be a lifetime teaching experience for you. If not for spiritual reasons, of course, I went for my spiritual reason. But if not, if you're not spiritual, you don't want to go there out of devotion, nothing else, but go there to see, to understand how has this entire thing being managed. It can become a case study in itself. The way crores of people coming into a city which probably wouldn't have seen this in their lifetime, the way they have managed. Nidhi and I were in this particular city in Prayagraj in November, and they were just starting from scratch. The roads were being laid down, and in no time, in about 2 months' time, they have built a city there which can equip and handle crores of people coming into that city. Not a single person pushing you, not a single bad experience with anybody. Nobody misleads you. People are so good. The UP people have been misinterpreted in the past in various ways and means. Not true at all. Extremely nice people, extremely nice place to be in. I don't think any other city in the country today could have handled this particular event better than Prayagraj.
Wonderful.
Right? It's a wonderful experience. If you all have ways and means to be there, please be there and experience it. Whether you want to take a dip or not, that's completely up to you. But to learn a life lesson, I think you should be there.
Yes, wonderful. If there are participants from Uttar Pradesh, please feel proud of being in Uttar Pradesh. I think we visited UP in November, and we were totally fascinated by the people, the state, the diversity, the culture, the food. I had the chance to visit Mathura and Vrindavan during peak Holi celebrations, and that is something that will always stay with me. So thank you so much, Manasa, for sharing this experience. Unfortunately, Manasa ji has a flight to catch. She is traveling back to her hometown, Bengaluru. So we have to let her go. But before we let her go, let's invite Dr. Vikas for any closing comments. Dr. Vikas.
Thank you, Mansaji, for joining us. And we wish that we will be able to request you again to conduct FDP for us. And
Yes.
we would love to hear more from you.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Anytime.
Yes, there are participants from Uttar Pradesh. Wonderful. Like, we just loved our visit there, and all the image and the stereotypes with UP are completely shattered. To me, at least in my mind, I would love to go there again and again.
Absolutely. I'm leaving a part of me in UP and going. So.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So thank you, Mansa. Thank you for taking out your precious time to share your knowledge about yoga philosophy with us. It really means a lot coming from a practitioner herself. And we know that you're traveling. You were in Kumbh for the last 3 days, and you're managing this session from Lucknow. So it really means a lot. And we are absolutely thrilled to have you on the NLD platform. And we hope that you will join us again to share your knowledge about yoga sometime soon in the future. So thank you so much. Wish you a safe flight back home. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste. Namaste, everyone. And Mansa, you can exit the meeting. Meanwhile, we'll be giving some instructions to the participants for tomorrow's session. Namaste.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for joining the session. Tomorrow is the last session of our certificate course, and we will be having with us Dr. Shagun Sinha from Amity University, and she will be talking about Paninian grammar and computational linguistics. She is a scholar in Sanskrit and linguistics. So please join this session, last session tomorrow at 6:30, to take benefits of insights that we will receive from a young scholar. She's quite a young scholar, and she was one of my fellow cohorts when I was doing the fellowship with Anadi Foundation. So thank you. We really hope that it has been fruitful so far for all our participants, and we hope to close the certificate course tomorrow on a high note, as we have been doing so for the past 9 sessions now. Thank you and namaste.
We will also be sharing feedback from tomorrow.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Good, Vikas. You said this. We'll be sharing the feedback form tomorrow, and all of you are requested to fill the feedback form so that it helps us, and it also helps us to disseminate and disburse your certificates.
Please stop the recording, Dr. Nidhi.
Yes, yes, just a moment.